France, 1611. A world of freezing mud, rotting grain, and the stench of the dead. Nicholas Herman wasn't a saint. He was a broken soldier trading his soul for a ration of bread in the bloodiest war in human history. To him, God didn't live in gilded cathedrals. He was a cold myth. Born into the gray fog of poverty, Nicholas sought survival in the rhythm of steel. He became a soldier of the 30 Years' War, witnessing the fragility of the human frame and the way life leaks out of a man in the dirt. He carried the trauma of the front lines until a wound finally took him out of the ranks, leaving him with a limp that would haunt his gait for the next 80 years. He was a man broken by the machinery of men, a discarded relic of a violent age. But the true shift happened in the dead of winter, standing before a gnarled, leafless tree. To any other man, it was a skeleton, lifeless, brittle, and forgotten by the sun. But at 18, Nicholas saw something that pierced him like a bayonet. He looked at that frozen wood and realized that within its bark, a secret life was stirring. Soon it would bloom. Soon it would be heavy with leaves and fruit. He realized that the Creator of the stars isn't hiding in the clouds. He is an active force, pulsing even through the dead of winter. If the Creator cared for a dead stick in a field, what could he do with a wounded soldier? After the blood of the battlefield dried, Nicholas found himself in a different kind of trench. The soldier was now a man of the shadows, a lackey in the cold, rain-slicked streets of Paris. He stood by the heavy, gilded doors of carriages, bowing as the wealthy stepped over the filth of the gutter. He waited on tables, his hands, once used to the weight of a musket, now trembling under the weight of silver platters. There is an indignity to such service that either breaks a man or burns away his ego. For Nicholas, every open door was a threshold into a deeper hunger. He was a clumsy man, a great awkward fellow who broke everything he touched. But this liminal space became his crucible. At 40, the yearning became a roar. He realized he was serving the wrong masters. The soldier became Lawrence of the Resurrection. When he entered the order of the Discalced Carmelites, he sought the cold stone of a cell and the nectar of high contemplation. Instead, they gave him a ladle and a grease-stained apron. For 15 years, Brother Lawrence existed in the belly of the monastery, the kitchen. This was a world of iron and ash. The air was heavy with the smell of boiling fat and the metallic tang of blood from butchered meat. There was no silence here, only the rhythmic thud of knives and the clatter of heavy pots. Lawrence initially hated it. He possessed a natural aversion to scullery work. It felt like a noisy barrier between him and the silence of God. But then, a tectonic grinding of the spirit occurred. He realized that if God is truly infinite, then he cannot be confined to the altar. He decided to do the hated task, the scrubbing of scorched pots, the peeling of endless roots, out of a visceral, singular love. He turned the heat of the fire into a sacrificial flame. Within this chaos, he discovered a frighteningly effective tool for the soul: the management of the monkey mind. Within the skull of every seeker lives a restless beast. Lawrence looked inward and did not find a cathedral of perfect stillness, but rather a frantic, chattering creature. It is a creature of noise, swinging from the branches of tomorrow's anxieties to the rotting fruit of yesterday's regrets. To Lawrence, the mind was a chaotic mob, but the will was the master of the house. Your faculties, imagination, reason, memory, are but servants. When the mind wanders into the thicket of worldly trifles, you do not punish it. To fight the monkey with violence only makes it scream louder. Instead, Lawrence practiced a disciplined, quiet reclamation. With a hand as steady as a cobbler's needle, he would reach out and pull the mind back again and again into the presence. If he failed 1,000 times, he returned 1,001. This was the new remembrance, a sudden ignition of the spirit that acted like a tether. By refusing to let the mind roam free, he turned his internal cage into a sanctuary. He proved that the will can tether even the wildest spirit to the heart of God, even while the hands are busy scouring iron. Look at his hands in his later years. They are calloused, stained with the tannins of raw hide, illuminated by a dying candle. Lawrence spent his final years hunched over a workbench, mending sandals for men who walked with ease. A broken man, repairing the path for others. In every stitch, he was not merely working, he was worshiping. He looked upon the complex theological maps of his era, the labyrinthine rules and rigid postures of the professional holy men, and he cast them aside. They were heavy chains. He realized that if God is truly infinite, he is as present in the scent of old leather as he is in the aroma of expensive incense. He chose to live in a state of perpetual awareness, a constant, silent conversation that required no cathedral. He ceased to pray and began to live prayer. To practice this presence is to first dismantle the idols we have built in his name. Many carry a terrifying image of the divine, a cold judge or an accountant of sins. But Lawrence understood that the foundation of the spiritual life is a high, unwavering esteem of a Father who is as intimate as the air in our lungs. He felt a profound, holy shame at how easily we turn our backs on the infinite to chase shadows, dwelling on the trivialities of the market and petty grievances. To Lawrence, the soul must be nourished with great thoughts of God. By holding this high image, he changed the gravity of his world. The Greece and the monastery's demands no longer felt like a burden, because they were done under the gaze of a love that makes even the smallest act eternal. Even in this light, a shadow once lengthened across his soul. It was the ghost of condemnation, the terrifying idea that a soldier with blood on his hands was eternally lost. For a long season, he was a prisoner to the thought that his devotion was merely a prelude to his own damnation. In the dim light of the chapel, he wrestled with this invisible executioner. But a realization broke through. This agonizing certainty of his ruin was not humility. It was a lack of faith. He was worshiping his own failure rather than the Creator's grace. He made a radical choice. He surrendered the ghost. He decided that if he were to be condemned, he would spend every remaining second loving God anyway. He transformed his sins into a daily offering. Lord, he would whisper, I am a master of making mistakes. Unless you hold me, I will do nothing but fail. In that total surrender, the chains of anxiety shattered. He walked out of the shadows, proving that holiness is not found in the absence of mistakes, but in the handling of them. When he stumbled, he did not flagellate himself with shame. He simply gathered the broken pottery of his failure and handed it back to the Father. He realized that the weight of guilt is often just another form of pride, the ego's way of saying it should have been more perfect than it was. As his life neared its end, Lawrence viewed physical pain as an invited guest. Through his letters, we see a man who had stripped the mask off tragedy. He did not view the breaking of the body as abandonment, but as a hidden crown. He understood that faith is not a muscle flexed in the sun, but a fire that burns brightest in the damp dark of a dungeon. When prayers felt like they hit a ceiling of cold stone, he did not panic. He leaned into the void. This was the divine weightlifting, where the absence of feeling forces the will to cling to the absolute. In the year 1691, the heavy stone walls of the Paris monastery grew cold. For Nicholas Herman, the final threshold had appeared. He stood at the edge of the abyss, but he did not tremble. To a man who has spent 40 years in a fever of divine conversation, death is not a predator. It is a door left slightly ajar. His body was failing, a cage of bone and tired flesh, yet his spirit remained anchored. In his final moments, he spoke of death with the casual intimacy of one greeting an old friend. He refused to believe that the transition into the afterlife was a separation. Why would he fear the silence of the grave when he had already found the eternal in the clatter of a kitchen? He had mastered the secret of the intimate conversation, a subterranean stream of prayer that flowed beneath the noise of the world. And now, as the world's noise faded entirely, that stream became an ocean. He lay in the dim light of his cell, a cobbler who had mended the soles of France, ready to step into the unshielded light. When he finally passed, many thought the story of the kitchen monk would end there, hidden and buried. But Providence has a strange way of handling those who seek to be forgotten. Among the mourners stood Joseph de Beaufort. He knew that while the body was being reclaimed by the earth, the essence of the man was trapped in a few scattered letters. Beaufort gathered the fragments, private notes of spiritual direction and memories of those who had sought Lawrence's counsel. In 1692, these fragments were bound together as the practice of the presence of God. It was never meant to be a manifesto for the masses. It was merely the recorded heartbeat of a cobbler. The irony is staggering. A man who spent his life withdrawing from the noise of the world became a global guide across 4 centuries. Millions of souls, kings and peasants, generals and mothers, have looked to this unlettered monk to find their own way through the dark. Joseph de Beaufort had written that all readers would find profit in these pages, because here was a brother as busy as they were, yet one who never lost the presence. The stone of the monastery is long gone, turned to dust and memory, but the echo remains. Brother Lawrence did not leave behind a cathedral of marble, but a sanctuary made of steam, grease, and the rhythmic scraping of a blade against a wooden bowl. He proved a terrifying, beautiful truth. God is not a prisoner of the temple. The divine is not trapped in the incense or the high, cold rafters of the cathedral. He is in the hand that works. He is in the heat of the fire and the weight of the burden. For 4 centuries, we have complicated the path, building labyrinths of ritual and thickets of dogma. But Lawrence stands at the threshold of the kitchen, his hands stained with the labor of the world, reminding us that the holy habit is not a luxury for the secluded. It is the survival kit for the broken, the busy, and the bored. It is the radical realization that there is no secular ground, only ground where we have forgotten to look up. You may believe your life is too loud for such a silence. You may feel the crush of the modern gears, the relentless hum of the digital age, and the exhaustion of a soul spread too thin. Yet Lawrence found the Blessed Sacrament in a tray of dirty sandals and a vat of boiling soup. He did not escape the noise. He found the presence within it. He lived as if there were nothing in the universe but God and himself, a constant, intimate dialogue that even death could not interrupt. Whatever your occupation, whatever the clutter of your day, the invitation remains. Constant communion is not a task to be completed. It is the only reality worth living. Every breath is a prayer if you intend it to be. Every mundane movement is a liturgy if performed for love. So, look at your hands. Are they merely tools of survival, or are they instruments of the eternal? The world will offer you 1,000 distractions to fill the void. The man who saw God in a dead winter tree has left a map for those lost in the thicket. The conversation didn't end in 1691. It is waiting for you to pick up the other end, right where you are, amidst the grease and the noise of your own life.